Wyatt begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Welcome to Wyatt, and I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Woof, goddammit, woof, woof, woof. Hey, this is my holiday show, and I have a very, very special guest on tap, just waiting to make things all festive and bright. But first, a couple of notices. Number one, do visit my online home, WyattEvans.com. That's WYATTEVANS, WyattEvans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ news, features, commentary, and entertainment. And I'm proud to say that WyattEvans.com is visited by nearly 100 countries. That's a yowza. And while you're at WyattEvans.com, check out my smoking HAWT hot Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. It's chock full of masculine romance and action and adventure and intrigue. And the current installment is entitled Frenzy. Frenzy. So give yourselves an extra special holiday treat by procuring and securing your very own copy of the exciting, the enticing, the erotic, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart Frenzy. Hey, it's a great read for curling up, by the fireplace and, maybe if you're horizontal with that special someone. Hey, it's all on the yummy, yum, yum, yum. And, I have a special Christmas message to you. I'm going to get really serious here. You know, work hard not to stress this holiday season. I mean, COVID has ravaged us in so many different ways this year. So as a result, Christmas is just not going to look and feel the same for so many of us. I mean, many of us have lost loved ones. And if we've had COVID, we might still be, experiencing symptoms even months after the initial diagnosis. And scores of us have lost jobs. And as a result, we may be cash strapped, food insecure, and facing evictions. But things could really be worse, a lot worse, in fact. So we have to count the blessings that we have. So don't freaking lose it this Christmas if it's not the perfect Christmas that you want it to be. I mean, y'all look, for example, if you don't receive or if you're not able to gift someone that 1,000-inch super duper plasma screen TV with a 28th century surround sound, don't stress, just chill. If you don't receive or you're not able to gift someone that impeccably wrapped, specially curated, meticulously crafted 500 DVD set of Black and Latino and threesome porn videos, well, don't stress. Just chill. So just try to accentuate the positive with the vaccine. Next year should be better. Okay, now. It is now time for me to introduce the very special guest for this episode of Wyatt. Y'all, this brother hails from Minneapolis, Minnesota, birthplace of the music icon and legend Prince. In other words, let's go crazy in our little red Corvette, and we be looking out the window, and we see When Doves Cry like it's 1999. And my listeners, this brother has one hell of an impressive resume. Let's see. He was an original member of the multi-Grammy award-winning musical group Sounds of Blackness. He's also the author of the popular and enthralling Christopher family novel series. As a poet, he's been recognized by the International Society of Poets as one of his best poets of 2003. And speaking of his Christopher family novels, the entire series can be found on the shelves of the public libraries all across the state of Minnesota. That's a hell of a feat and an honor. And that will be one major topic of conversation with this author near the end of today's show. And I'm also privileged that he's a guest writer for WyattEvans.com with his insightful and clever column, Old School, New Kid. And his brand new novel, Never Give Up, has just dropped. So, my listeners, I want to be just like this gentleman when I grow up. That is, if I ever choose to do so. Shut up. So, without further ado, Wyatt welcomes the absolutely awesome talent, Mr. W.D. Foster Graham. Talk at me, my brother. How the hell are ya?
Hey, Wyatt, I am feeling awesome today.
You know what? You sound awesome. And did you like that intro?
Love it. Hey, yes.
Well, you know what? I need another job, so you should hire me as your PR guy.
That's a thought.
Okay, well, you know what? We're going to talk about that when we're off air. All right. Well, first of all, my friend, I must say that your work is captivating and engrossing. Um, it's sophisticated, rich, soapy family drama. And that really appeals to me, WD, because, I really got hooked into stuff like Greenleaf. So I like it. I like it a lot. So,
Thank you.
oh, sure, my pleasure. Okay, so give us the 411 on your Christopher family novel series, like provide us with a synopsis.
Well, the Christopher Family novel series was something that I created. It is something that was a ongoing process because when I wrote it, I wanted to see a successful, powerful African American family that sets standards rather than follows them.
Mm-hmm.
So it started with my linchpin character is Alan Beckley Christopher, who is a mover and shaker. He started out as a multimillionaire in the series. Now he's a billionaire.
Wow.
And that's right, he is. So the series will take you through the lives of different members of this very large extended family, as
Uh-huh.
well as their family friends as well, which is
Uh-uh.
shows up in my fifth novel, Never Give Up, a family friend. So that's what I wanted to see because, in the words of Toni Morrison, if there is a story that you wish to read and it hasn't been written yet, then you must be the one to write it.
Oh, wow. You know what, WD, that is profound. That's a kick in the ass. So, all you writers that are writing now, make sure you finish that book. And for right now, too, this is a good time for Black talent, be you a writer, an actor, a producer. This is a good time now that if you have something very creative that you believe will sell, you need to do it. You need to do that. Okay, let's travel down the corridors of time. Tell us, where in Minneapolis were you born and raised?
I'm a product of Southside Minneapolis. I am a graduate of Minneapolis Central High School.
Cool.
And of course, Minneapolis' Black community had North Side and South Side.
Uh-huh.
So I am from a very large extended family. So everybody knew each other back in the day, especially given that you had redlining, you
Ooh,
know, and the same thing as in church.
right.
Everybody knew who everybody was in the community. Of course, that meant that when we were kids, that meant that we didn't have just one set of parents. We had, say, 20 to start with,
Wow.
and they kept an eye on us.
Wow. I like that. I like that a lot. Hmm. Okay, now look, here's a question for you because inquiring minds want to know. I mean, so many people, knew that I was going to do this interview and they wanted me to ask you a question. Do you know what that question was or is?
Mm, do ask.
Okay. What was WD like as a little boy, as a little nipper? Give us three characteristics that would describe you as a little boy.
Let's see. I was called Brainiac. I was a bit of a nerd,
Okay.
and people often thought I was relatively quiet.
No, not
Quiet.
you.
Mhm.
No.
You wouldn't think so now, but I was.
Oh, no, no, no,
What?
no. Oh, my God. Let me, oh, well, people thought that of me too. And I think in my last show, I believe I said that nerds can be freaky deaky. Look, I would ask your husband, but I just don't have enough time. But anyway, okay, cool. Okay, I like that. I like that. Well, let's fast forward. That you graduated from Luther College with a degree in psychology.
That is correct. So I say, hey to the Luther College Black alumni. I say, thank you, thank you, thank you for being part of my life, as well as my English professor, Sandy Goban, who was one of those persons who encouraged me on my passion for writing.
Oh, that is great. That's great. Okay, why psychology?
It was like that curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And psychology was like, okay, what makes people tick?
Mm,
Why do they do what they do, and how does that show up, and all of the above. Interestingly enough, although I never used it in quote mental health field, it became invaluable when it came to creating characters for my works.
mm. Yeah, and we're gonna later on. I'm gonna ask you, about your writing process and how you develop your characters. So please keep that in mind. Okay.
Okay.
Now, you were a member of the multi-Grammy award-winning musical group, The Sounds of Blackness. Now, how did that come to be, and what was the experience like?
Hmm. After I graduated from Luther, I went down to, well, may strike that. I should say that the director and the arranger and some of the Sounds of Blackness, Gary Hines, and I went all the way back to our days at Bryant Junior High School and Central High School. We were both in the band together. So
Oh,
that's my brother. He is phenomenal. So I came to a rehearsal at one time, and that's how
mm-hmm.
I became one of the original sounds because at the time I was one of the few basses in the ensemble.
Wow.
And so I learned everything from, you know, you going there from gig to gig, mic test, sound checks, setup, tear down, all the things that regard the work, and rehearsals every week, and sometimes more when we had a gig or if we had like a program coming up, like a Christmas program. And that was very exciting learning all that, and learned a lot of lessons about discipline.
Right.
And, if you're going to be out there, you have to have that stage presence, because
Mm.
when you have it, your audience feels it. When you're on top of your game and you've done your work, it's phenomenal. And I really appreciate Gary for the time that I was there. I think I was there up until 1981.
Okay.
This was before the days of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, when we were
Right.
semi-professional. We went professional later on.
Right.
So, but that is actually how I got into it. And it's a running joke because the time I got in, it seemed like I also had, what to say, at least 3 or 4 cousins that were also in the sounds at that time.
Wow. That's
So we had what
interesting.
you call the Johnson connection.
Wow. Uh-huh. Interesting. Oh, yeah. The my group of peoples who wanted to ask you another question, and here it is. It's they want to know, did you have groupies? You still there?
Groupies?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm still there.
I'm waiting.
I We had camp followers of the Sounds. Yes, we did have them. Of course, some I didn't realize what groupies were until I actually got there. I said, "Oh, okay, hi." Because I still okay. I'm this guy. I am 6'4", and
uh,
I had this big afro at the time, and that was something that was new to me because, as I said, although you know, I like to sing and I do all these things, but I still had that kind of quiet, reserved temperament, sort of like Patti LaBelle, because Patti LaBelle, she lets everything loose on stage,
right.
but when she's off stage, she is very laid back, and that was
Uh-huh.
me.
Ah. Okay. Well, you answered that question. Okay, my friend. Let's move on to your journey as an author. What was the motivating force that propelled you to be an author? I mean, for example, with me, it was, still is, the burning desire for the world to hear my particular voice and my point of view, and my fervent need to tell those stories that echo, the lives of ethnic SGL, same gender loving men. So, in your case, what was it?
Well, in my case, I wrote because I couldn't not write.
Ah,
I was writing since I was old enough to pick up a pencil and paper.
get out.
Yeah, I had a vivid imagination. I create these short stories about animals.
Okay.
And so one of my stories, as a matter of fact, was about a bookworm who visits my junior high school. And the
Uh-huh.
thing, a live bookworm, and all the experiences like being knocked down, almost stepped on, crushed, and all those things in his search for a feast of books. And
Oh,
I was surprised that actually in a state competition, I got a commendation award for that book.
great.
Then for me, I have to say it has everything to do with writing the books I've wanted to read. Because
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm old school. I own it. But back in those days, when I was looking for books to read, I kept coming up with, where are the books that feature someone who looks like me, not
Right.
only as African American, but also as LGBT and same gender loving.
Right.
And back in the 70s,
Yeah.
you couldn't find anything about same gender loving.
Mm-mm.
And too many of the books that were out about African Americans held those stereotypes.
Right. Right.
So, and that was a motivation to write the books that I wanted to read. And with a little nudge from my dad, and also a pastor friend of mine. That's when I started on my first novel, because you said it best. As African Americans, there are so many stories out there that
Hmm.
need to be told, that more than deserve to be told. But it's us to share them, because in my family, a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
You know what, WD, you're absolutely right. I'm going to talk about your father, rather ask you about your father a little bit later.
Hmm.
Um, I believe you have said that it took you about 17 years from writing the book until having it published. Um, if so, what were the challenges and the obstacles that you faced along the way?
Well, writing the book, at least the first one, really took 5 years for me to do. It was my first one. And sometimes the challenge was me. I'm venturing in new territory.
Right.
And so I'm asking, okay, can I do this? And so, because at the time it was type of book that hadn't been written before. And then the next challenge is, once it was written, was the publishing process, because I went through the whole traditional publishing thing.
Hmm.
And you get back the, oh, we're not intrigued enough, oh, it doesn't suit our needs at this time,
Hmm.
so on and so on. That traditional publishing, you know,
Yep.
experience. So then I think it went through that for many, many years. Then finally, I just came across a publishing house, or should I say, it was designed for persons who were independent authors.
Right.
And I submitted my novel there, and it was published. And I was thrilled. Wow, yay, it's published. Now what?
Right. Right. Right.
Because you think about it, Wyatt, um, when it comes to being an independent novelist, it's a
Hmm.
very high learning curve.
Oh,
I learned with mark my words, that was the first novel that there's not just the writing. Okay, how do you market it? How do you design the covers?
hmm.
How do you make it appealing to your readers? How do you find your readers? That sort of thing. And also, it came to editors. Is You look at the thing as, okay, where is an editor that has cultural sensitivity?
Right.
These are these are questions that came up. So, because mark my words, in its current form came out of when I saw it at first, because I saw it, but the thing was, it wasn't marketed because it looked like a huge science textbook. If you could picture this,
Oh,
going to college, and those big books you have there,
yeah.
that's what it looked like. It didn't have a cover design. It's just like, duh. So
I know.
we learned how to tweak things.
Yeah.
So,
You know, that brings back memories because what I tell aspiring writers or, writers trying to publish that first novel, I tell them that there are two decisions to be made. The first one, well, two things. You either have to decide whether you want to just write the book, the novel as a hobby, or if you really want to sell it. Now, if you want to sell it, you really very early on have to come up with a marketing promotional strategy because you can have the best product in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it's all for naught. So that marketing and promotion, those pieces have to be put together. What do you think about that?
yeah, it has to be a complete package, which was part of my learning curve as an independent author. You say, yeah, exactly. If a person doesn't know about it, hey, then what? Where are you going to go with it?
Right.
So it goes down to all those things in terms of how you market it, where you market it, finding out, okay, where's your target audience?
Mm.
And and that's the thing about it. that I was naive enough at one point to think, okay, I must market it to everybody. Well, the answer is no.
Right.
When I really looked at myself, I wanted to market it to African Americans and LGBT.
Right.
That's where my target audience was. So, as an independent author, it's very important to find out, okay, where do they hang out? If it's
Hmm.
social media, where are you gonna find them? And part of it is I learned that what we give is what we receive. So if I visualize that it's already out there, I'm going to attract that audience. I'm going to connect with my reading audience.
Hmm. You're absolutely right. And when you are an independent, like both of us are, we have control, because creative control. Because when I first tried to publish Nothing Can Tear Us Apart Uncensored, um, I went the traditional route, to the editors, to the houses, both publishing houses, both small, medium, and large. And most said, no, it's not there is not a need for a story of two ethnic males who are upscale and that sort of thing. I did get some offers from like small and medium houses, a few offers, but they wanted to make it into gangsta, you know,
Mm,
gangsta.
hmm
That's not I have, I don't begrudge any of that, but that's not the story I'm telling. I'm telling the story of Black and Latino SGL men who are upscale and some real substantive issues. So I said, no, I'm not going the gangster route. So, like you, I said, let me do this myself, because you have total control and you learn so much as well. You learn about editing, writing, marketing, promotion, social media. You learn all about that stuff.
exactly, Wyatt. Exactly. And oh, one other thing is, if you're going to be an independent author, this is a quote from Aretha Franklin that has stuck with me. And she said it: be your own author, be your own artist, and always be confident in what you're doing. If
Mm.
you're not confident about it, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Oh, God, yeah. Thank you
That's
for
yeah,
WD. Thank you for that. I mean, and that is so applicable to anything you're doing, any profession, that you embark on. Thank you for telling us that.
yeah. That's helped me through those times, because I could have very easily, just gotten scared. So, well, what if it's no good? What if it's no that? If it's right, if that story is within you and that's in your heart, that's a story you tell. You know, we learned that
Exactly.
our gifts make room for us. And one thing I found out of being independent author, that it does embrace certain principles of Kwanzaa:
Hmm.
creativity, self-determination, and cooperative economics.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, sir. Describe your writer's process for us. How do you map out the story? And before you even start, do you like formulate a 25-word elevator pitch, that encapsulates the entire story? How do you do your thing?
I haven't done an elevator pitch. Usually that comes later in my process. First comes the idea of what I want to write about. And then from there, I figure out a synopsis. But, and then as I mentioned about my psych degree, I
Mm-hmm.
create psychological profiles of each character that's in there. So, they're good, they're bad, their little idiosyncrasies, all those things. That way, it keeps me on track as I'm writing about that character.
Uh,
Then, following that, what I do is, and I learned this from Agatha Christie, I write the beginning and the ending of my novel first.
really?
Hmm
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
And Now, when after I've done that, then I come to an outline and a kind of a rough outline, and for each chapter. From there, my writing style has been the same way as a movie be put together. I write
Okay.
out a sequence. Whatever shows up for a certain chapter, that's what I write. I just never did it in a linear fashion. Now, that may work for me. It may not work that way for someone else. But
Right.
again, that's okay because we each have a different writing style, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is my process. Oh, and of course, I cannot forget research because
Oh yeah.
if I'm writing historical fiction, and especially I'm writing about his back in the day, I go to the library, but I also am grateful to have a group of elders in my family and in my
Mm.
church that I could go to to ask, okay, can you tell me about this, this, and this? Especially if we're talking about before I was born, and they are invaluable.
That is great. That is great. Okay. Here's a little something something for you. Why would someone say, uh-huh, and I quote, uh-huh, I thought so. This is a WDFG, a WD Foster Graham novel. What what sets you apart from the rest of the pack? What elements, what elements in your writing are consistent? Again, that someone would pick it up and say, after flipping through some pages and reading a little bit, they say, wow, this is him. If that makes sense to you.
Oh, it does.
I'm glad because
It does.
I was concerned.
No, that's my wife because I think what sets me apart is because when I'm writing, I incorporate my own roots growing up as a young black gay man from
Mm,
Southside Minneapolis. So that I bring that to the table. I also bring my father's offbeat sense of humor in my work,
mm-hmm.
and I also I would also, with me, I always include LGBT characters in a prominent role. They're never in the background. They're up and front and center.
Mm,
And since my background has everything to do with being, I guess you call it like this little middle class black kid,
right.
that's gonna show up too. These are all parts of me that I bring to the table.
I like that. First of all, I want to say thank you for saving my ass on that question because I could barely get it out. So I want to thank you for that. Now, you have said, and I quote, the most significant person who inspired me on my journey as an author, my father, end quote. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, he was the one that has been a major influence in my life so far as an author. My father was a career military officer in the Air
Wow.
Force.
Yeah.
And if anybody said black people don't read, you could probably be the end of a look that would freeze water from my father because he was a voracious reader.
Okay.
And I took after him. I
Uh-huh.
He loved reading. I love to read. He he represented what I think the best of black men, especially in his generation. And as a matter of fact, my main character in my first novel that goes through the series is a composite of my father and my uncles and black men of his generation. Of course, as I said, he was a teenager of the 40s. He was a Korean conflict veteran,
Mm-hmm.
and he was my biggest critic, but he is also my number one fan. So, so when I showed him my first novel and he read it from cover to cover,
Mm-hmm.
And I asked, Dad, does this character represent African American men of your generation? When he put his stamp on it, that was
Mm-hmm.
it. That's all I need to know. Nobody else could say anything to me.
That is just, I have no words. That's great. It's so, you know what, us creative people really, we may not want to admit it openly, but we need support, particularly from our family and friends. And I mean, support that's honest, no bullshitting. If you've written a stinker, I want them to say, Wyatt, what is wrong with you? This is not working. This is what did you, were you smoking something when you wrote this book? What's the problem? And so it's so important to have that you know that it's just great.
Yeah. Now he died in 2012, but
Oh, I'm so sorry.
he's still very much alive in me and in my mother and my brother and sister. One thing I think of when I think of support, I think of highly of the support of my father and how he was there for me from the beginning all the way through. He never wavered in that support. And for that reason, when it comes to dedicating my novels, they are dedicated to three people, since with words, family is everything. To my dad and to my husband, whom I've been married to for 10 years and whom I love, and to my son. They have all, in their respective ways, shown that kind of support, which is definitely means everything to an author, because some may not get it, that kind of support. I'm grateful for the fact that I have it.
Hmm.
So,
Okay. Wow. Okay. We need you to drill down on your brand new release entitled Never Give Up. Tell us all about it. What's going on in Never Give Up?
okay, so I'd be more than happy to give you a little synopsis about Never Give Up, a Christopher family novel. Since, well, Never Give Up is actually the fifth novel in my Christopher family novel series. And what is serendipitous about it is that each novel builds upon the previous one. So they are designed to be read in sequence. So with Never Give Up actually also deals with this is one of the ones I mentioned earlier that has a family friend. That's the main subject of the book. So here we are. Never Give Up is it's historical fiction,
Mm-hmm.
and it is about the character of Earl James Berry, patriarch of the Berry family, and a lifelong friend to Elijah Edwards. So, like Eli, Earl is a man of character, honor, and integrity, highly respected, well loved. Through his connections to the powerful Edwards family, which is a branch of the Christopher family, doors of opportunity open for Earl. Though he did not come from old money, he made a name for himself as well as becoming another role model and success story in the community.
Mm.
Now, as one of the first African American district attorneys in Hennepin County, he racked up a success rate in convictions that took him to a seat on the bench for criminal court cases.
Mm.
He has had a long and distinguished career in the field of law and justice, and the reputation of being a tough but fair judge. All of his children have married well, and they're successful in their own right. Family and being rooted in faith have always seen them through until a fateful day of what should have been a time of celebration comes. As his life hangs by a thread, we see his life and legacy through the eyes of his wife, his 6 children, and one of his grandchildren, and wonder if a gift, quote unquote, passed around through the generations will help to solve a mystery. The time of Never Give Up is 2012. The place is Minneapolis. And so, actually, because it's done in flashback, you're going to be seeing the history from 1946 to 2012.
Mhm.
And like Gloria Naylor, the book is actually 8 stories with a common thread of Earl James Berry, because each story represents a member of his family. So you see, his wife has his story, then his 6 children do, and then one of his grandchildren has a separate story. And then the catalyst is November 6, 2012, the night of President Obama's reelection, when Judge Berry is shot.
Wow. Now, Gloria Naylor, wasn't she? Didn't she pen the Women of Brewster, the Women of Brewster's Place, right?
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Got it. Well, you got some rich soapy drama going on over here.
Thank you. Thank you.
You want to do a reading?
Certainly. Certainly.
Yeah. So set it up for us.
Okay. Well, the reading I'm going to do is going to be from the first story in the novel, which is about Earl's wife, Juanita Langston Berry. After all, who knows him better than his wife? So we're going to be going back in history. And since this is a holiday season, decide to keep it on the fun side. And you're going to find out how these two people met. So we're going back to 1946.
Okay. Now, before you start, let me give you the proper intro. Dun, 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 dun. Let me give you the proper intro. Dun, 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 dun. My listeners, this is an excerpt from the brand new release from Mr. W.D. Foster Graham. And the book is entitled Never Give Up. And I'll say it one more time. Dun, 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 dun.
Thank you, Wyatt. Thank you for the intro. And you're coming from through the voice of Juanita Langston Berry. I was working late on a Thursday evening on December 12th, 1946, if memory serves, making plans to do a little Christmas shopping before I went home and hoping my parents wouldn't be there yet. I was dressed more for a brisk fall day, since that December was mild and still green at that point. I locked the office door and headed down to the end of the hall. Normally, I was out the door at 5, but that night I saw a young man leaving an office with a mop, bucket, and cleaning supplies. He didn't see me at first as I stood there waiting for the elevator, but when he turned around, our eyes met. "Hi," I heard him say. "Hi," I replied, just as the elevator door opened and I got on. As the door closed, I saw him look at me again and give me a smile. I don't even remember if I returned his smile, but on the trip down, I found myself hoping that I had. As I shopped for presents at Dayton's, then while I waited for the trolley and during the ride home, he piqued my curiosity. During dinner with my parents, I found myself distracted. While I listened to the hit parade on the radio, I couldn't get his image out of my mind. I racked my brain in an effort to place him. I wasn't sure if he was familiar, but his image was a delight to the senses. I estimate him to be 6 feet, in contrast to my 5'6". Even in the custodian's work clothes, he was one well-built man. I had no doubt he must have been an athlete in high school and probably kept that way in the military. His deep brown complexion was rich, and his raven black hair a curious mixture of curly and wavy. Could he possibly have Native American blood in him somewhere? As of his smoky gold eyes, I saw
Mm.
intelligence and pure animal magnetism in them, a sense of knowing exactly what he wanted. Oh, my dear, if a woman wasn't careful, she could lose herself in that man, but the trip would be filled with non-stop enjoyment. As the ink spots serenaded me with "To Each His Own," I got up from my bed and stood in front of the floor-length mirror in my bedroom for an appraisal. From Mama, I had inherited a healthy hourglass figure and a thick head of shoulder-length, dark brown hair, which was currently hot-pressed into submission. Papa had given me smooth, medium brown skin, his engaging smile, and his passionate but wise eyes. People who see me today would consider me an older and darker complexioned version of the Fifth Dimension's Marilyn McCoo. I've laughed about that since she's young enough to be one of my daughters. When the group hit the charts in the late 60s, some people asked me, "Are you sure she's not your niece?" Nobody I ever dated had given me an argument about my looks, and Papa was always there to guard my virtue, with deadly weapons, if necessary. In my self-appraisal, I already visualized my mystery man standing next to me in the mirror. No, there was more to that brief exchange of greetings than met the eye, as far as I was concerned. I was full of questions I hoped to have answers for soon. Of course, at 18, a girl wants those questions answered yesterday. Had I seen him before? Where did he live? What was a man like that doing a custodian's job when he was clearly capable of so much more, if his eyes were any indication? And how would I fit into the picture? Better yet, how did I want to fit into the picture, if there was one?
Well, everyone, that is the excerpt from the brand new work, Never Give Up, by Mr. W.D. Foster Graham. W.D., I took notes. Let me tell you what were my two favorite parts. Ready?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Number one, well-built man. Let me repeat, well-built man. Number two, yeah. Number two, hot pressed into submission.
Mm-hmm.
I like that very, very much. Thank you for that excerpt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, you are one prolific writer. Tell us about the other works that you have in development right now.
Okay. Well, the books I have in development at the present time, I have two male romance novels.
Mm.
The first one is entitled The Right to Be. And although I wrote romance elements in all of my novels preceding it, this is the first one that is a full-on male romance. I say love, passion, and happily ever after.
Yowza.
And of course, and yeah, all about black love.
Oh, Lord. Yes. Yes.
So, in that novel, I write about the grandson of my original main character of Alan Beckley Christopher.
Okay.
He has a grandson named Alan Christopher Davis, whose parents are music royalty. They are
Wow.
legendary.
Okay.
And so he starts out in the Bahamas where they've been living for years. He's been living with a closeted boyfriend, and he can't stand him anymore. He has just had enough, and he wants out. Of course, his family, his parents, and his twin brother, they're there at family solidarity, and so the whole family closes up shop. They leave the Bahamas and come back to the U.S.
Oh.
And so Alan's journey to find true love deals with the fact that, well, what awaits a child of celebrity when he comes back to a country that's obsessed with celebrities, and just how normal his norm will be in that process. So he goes through his share of different challenges, but the Christopher family protect what's theirs. And so they're always there to support him. And so he does get his HEA.
Mm.
That's the first one. The second one is called To Thine Own Self. And that is about another member of the Christopher family. His name is Reverend Daryl Edwards. So he's part of the Edwards family branch that's in the Twin Cities. You know, they are the family that comes from old money. And with Daryl's journey, you're seeing him. He's an associate pastor of an LGBT church. He is he is widowed. His wife had died, and he has three children. And he's realizing that he's not as straight as he thought he was. And the other main character's name is Cesare. He comes from a modern family. He has two dads, and he's an adoption attorney for LGBT families.
Hmm.
So, and he's biracial. He's half African American. He's half Italian. So, as their stories mix, the question Daryl wonders is, well, will I have a second chance at love? And for Cesare is, you know, how would I fit into the life of a pastor who already belongs to a family and a congregation?
Oh.
Can I walk that walk with him? And of course, and in there, I have my own little brand of humor as well. And of course, with both of them, there is nice, steamy, sizzling, torrid romance.
I can't wait for these. Very, very nice. Listen,
Okay.
speaking WD of blue humor, I hate to do this, but my sidekick, her name is Madam Pussy Galore Cockadoodle Doo, if you can believe that, wants to ask you a question. Is that all right?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, madam, pull yourself up to the mic. Pull yourself up to the mic. Oh, yes, yes, yes. I am Madam Pussy Galore Cockadoodle Doo, Drag Queen Supreme. And Mr. Well, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, don't you forget it. Well, madam, just look at you. You are a hot mess. I mean, you're sweating. Your Walmart wig's a mess, and the girls are flip flopping, just falling all out of place. What's up with that? Oh, just flash the pearls and stop the train. And you shut up, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans. I mean, I've been ripping and running and ripping, trying to find the perfect. Perfect what? Get to the point. Dang it, the clock is freaking ticking. Oh, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, don't you dare rush a girly girl. Okay. I've been all over town trying to find the perfect Christmas balls. Christmas balls? WTF? Mr. Having just the right Christmas balls makes everything, and I do mean everything, so full for the holiday season, so festive. I mean, yes, the balls must be just the right size, big, but not too big, just the right texture, and definitely just the right fullness. Oh, Mr. Well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I decidedly do not. Now, madam, ask Mr. Fostergram your one question. You're only gonna get one. Mr. Well, okay. Okay, here's my question for Mr. Arthur Man. Okay. Here it is. Are you ready?
Yes.
Have you dropped off the face of the earth? Are you still there?
Oh, I'm very much here.
I'm glad. I know I talk a lot. But anyway, okay, here's your question. Okay, now, how did you become such a manly man? I mean, by your pictures, you're such a silver fox. You're such a hot daddy. Inquiring minds want to know.
Oh, why? Oh, all that to the Johnson genes. So I come by it by hereditary. Between my dad and my uncles, they put together that mix.
Oh my God, I want to meet your uncles. I want to meet everyone. I just do. Madam, zip it. Don't say another word. I apologize for that. Here's a question for you, Mr. Author.
Yes.
Recently, the Minnesota spokesman reporter interviewed you, and that publication stated, and I quote, Foster Graham found it an urgent agenda to get more Black books on the shelves in the state of Minnesota, end quote. So let's discuss your initiative, which is fantastic, to get the works of local Black authors into the Minneapolis public library systems rather. What was your impetus in doing so?
Well, my impetus came from a book launch that a sister at my church was having. And I was there to attend, and I bought one of her books. I mean, it was really intriguing. He's talking about her father, who was a prominent Black pastor in the history of Minnesota.
Wow.
And the Hennepin County Library was there, and they were there as a support. And I talked to them, and I mentioned that, yes, I'm an independent author too, and I gave them my information. It was the Hennepin County Library, and I give you shout out Hennepin County Library for being the first to carry my series in their collection.
Wow.
This planted the seed because I'm thinking, one, okay, my definition of success is not just to see my work there, but to see other Black authors up there too, because library was a love, my second home. And I wanted to see that, that would be most gratifying for me. So what I started doing was checking out the different library websites and seeing just how much representation of Black authors there was.
Right.
And the disparity definitely gave me pause. Well, of course, It also wasn't a surprise, but it certainly gave me pause. So one by one, I started contacting the directors of the different libraries and addressing this disparity, especially with local Black authors. Because hey, if you're not taking care of home, what are you doing?
Exactly. Right.
And I also address the fact that their selection process excludes Black authors, given that most Black authors are likely to be independent versus traditional.
Right. Yes.
We know there's racism in traditional publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that was a catalyst was because when I started contacting them, George Floyd's murder had taken place.
Oh, I see.
So that was on everyone's mind, including the Minnesota Library Association. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, right now, 2/3 of the public library systems in Minnesota have my series in their collection, plus the Des Moines Public Library as well. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And I am currently in partnership with the Minnesota Black Authors Expo. Dorothy Nins is the director of it. And so for the initiative to get Black authors into the public library systems, because those selection processes are not at random.
Right.
So it's us as Black authors and as African Americans to go to speak up and to address this issue with the library systems. Because if you don't see those books in there, you say, hey, wait a minute, no, what's
well, WD,
what's up with that? And
absolutely.
When I presented, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
Okay. Then what it wound up doing was you have to go with data. So I not only presented the data, but I presented a list of resources and authors. So that way they say, yeah, here we are now. Next step.
Whoa. I was going to ask you about your blueprint. So yeah, well, was there how much resistance, if any, was there?
It depended on the public library systems I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the libraries in the Twin Cities metro area, especially Hennepin County and St. Paul Public Library, were the most proactive. Okay. Once you got outside the metro area, then you have persons who, well, we just didn't know, so they were glad to receive the information that I sent them because thank me for bringing it to their attention. Then you have those that were, I would say, just wanted to pass the buck. And then you also had those that were reluctant. Those outstate Minnesota, show more of that because those regional library systems can often have 20 or 30 local public libraries, in those small towns. So, but the one-on-one conversations, they make a difference. And you also know it's important to be persistent and to follow up and to hold people accountable, because the Library Association, which is part of that governing body, is very clear on their website that they're committed to addressing systemic racism.
Well, I have got to applaud and commend you for that, because you're definitely giving back. Um, you're the man. Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
okay. You've got I assume you have a busy slate for 2021, WD, with your new releases that you're going to drop. Anything else going on?
Let's see. Well, I do have some more ideas as far as upcoming novels as well. And of course, 2021, I'm busy because I'm now part of my church body as a pro tem, as a trustee. So
All
that's
right.
definitely keep me busy. And with my alums at Luther College, I will also be doing mentoring.
Uh-huh.
So these are things that are coming for 2021. And
Wonderful. Now, how do we purchase your new release, Never Give Up, and actually the entire Christopher family series of novels?
okay, you can purchase it through Amazon, through
Mm-hmm.
Barnes and Noble, and you can purchase it through Author House. Those are the three main venues where you can get the series. And of course, and for those, especially those here in Minnesota, who would like to go and check it out for hand, there are the public library systems here.
Yes, 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 yes. That's right. Okay, how do we connect with and follow you? Would you give us your website and all of your social media info?
I'd be most happy to. My website is wfostergrahamauthor.com. And my motto is, at the end of the day, it's all about the love. For my social media, I am on Facebook, I am on Twitter, and my email is wfostergraham@wfostergrahamauthor.com.
Wonderful. Now listen, my listeners. Now, his Christopher family novel series will make excellent holiday gifts, so you need to check them out. Check them out. Well, Mr. W.D. Foster Graham, thank you so much for being my special guest on this episode of Wyatt, and I need to have you back on.
I look forward to it, Wyatt, and I thank you and I appreciate you for having me on your program.
My pleasure. Goodbye, Mr. Daddy Man. I'm going to check out all your books.
Goodbye, and definitely enjoy.
Look, Madam's a trip. So, anyway, there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page on WyattEvans.com, and the official Twitter hashtag is Wyatt Podcast. Now, if you want to be a guest on Wyatt to tell your particular unique story, or you just have comments, you can email me at wyattonair@gmail.com. That's wyattonair@gmail.com. And you can follow me, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, your host, on Facebook.com/Wyatt O'Brien Evans, on Twitter at Mr. Woe, on Instagram at Mr. MRYATTO. And be sure to check out my Nothing Can Tear Us Apart novels, the latest being Frenzy, and its predecessor, Rage, at WyattEvans.com. And let me again say, ho, 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 Merry Christmas. So until next time, woof, goddammit, woof, woof, woof. Oh, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, just shut up.